the Young Project Goons, Team Knockout, The Strip, Pressure Gang, and more. But they weren't the only ones pushing fentanyl in St. Louis. Around the same time as the 5-5 boys were getting taken down, the cops also booked a major dealer named Freeman Whitfield on a murder charge. Whitfield was running fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin through St. Louis, and he was working with another dude named Guy Goolsby. Guy Goolsby was the plug, and Freeman Whitfield was the muscle. They were moving tons of weight in St. Louis, and Freeman Whitfield decided to take out one of their own dealers. A dude named Antonio Boyd was one of the dealers who worked for Guy Goolsby and Freeman Whitfield. And back in 2018, he got booked on drug charges. Freeman Whitfield was worried that the cops were going to flip Antonio Boyd so they could take down the whole operation. So in December 2019, Freeman Whitfield slid on Antonio Boyd and shot him to death. The feds were already watching Freeman Whitfield and Guy Goolsby, but murdering Antonio Boyd was what sparked the whole downfall. In 2020, the DEA planted an undercover fed who bought fentanyl from Freeman Whitfield. Then they raided the crew's stash houses and found 1.5 million cash, 25 kilos of cocaine, 3 kilos of fentanyl, 10 kilos of heroin, and enough guns to start a war. After the investigation was over, Guy Goolsby got hit with 150 months in prison and will probably come home in a few years. But Freeman Whitfield had the murder charge and got sentenced to life plus 10 years. The drug game brought all kinds of violence to St. Louis, but another thing that made the streets turn up was when Michael Brown was murdered by the police back in 2014. Michael Brown, aka Big Mike, got into a fight with a cop named Darren Wilson in a St. Louis suburb called Ferguson. It started when Mike Brown allegedly reached into a cop car that Darren Wilson was in, and 2 shots ended up going off. Mike Brown and his homie ran off. Then Darren Wilson chased Mike Brown and ended up killing him. A lot of people thought Darren Wilson murdered Mike Brown, even though he was putting his hands up and asked Darren Wilson to not shoot. And the killing sparked a huge protest in Ferguson. People were rioting in the streets like crazy because they thought the cops killed Mike Brown for no reason. So St. Louis had to send almost all their police to Ferguson so they could try and control the situation. But while the cops were all in Ferguson dealing with the protests and riots, the rest of the city turned up even more. 30 Deep Grimy said, you can go start on your ops on the west side, downtown, or wherever else, because all the cops were in Ferguson and couldn't respond to any shooters in the rest of the city.
You can do anything in the city because everybody was in Ferguson County at the time, fucking it up. So you can go downtown and kill your enemy. Go kill your enemy on the west side. Police ain't coming because all the fucking police is in Ferguson. You can straight rob everything in the city right now or kill anybody you want to kill because everybody was in Ferguson at the time.
A lot of cities have problems with gang violence, but St. Louis also has a wild issue with gangs from Bosnia, and it led to one of the most brutal murders in the city. Bosnia is a tiny country in Europe, and most people have no idea that it has ties to St. Louis. Back in the 90s, Bosnia was involved in a crazy war, and a lot of Bosnians left the country so they wouldn't get killed. The Bosnians started coming to St. Louis because it was easy to find jobs and the rent was cheap. And now St. Louis has the largest number of Bosnians outside of Europe. Most of them were just trying to survive, but some of the Bosnians got active in the trenches too. And in 2014, a Bosnian American named Samir Bergic was brutally beaten to death with hammers by 4 teenagers. At first, rumors were flying that Samir Bergic repped a Bosnian gang. And then some people thought it was a hate crime because he was a white Bosnian and the teenagers who killed him were all black and Latino. It was one of the most violent murders in the city. Now we're going to break down the stories from St. Louis that are so brutal that most people don't even want to hear about them. Back in 2016, a woman named Pam Hupp called the cops and said that a dude named Louis Gumpenberger tried to kidnap her and put a knife to her throat. When the cops rode up to Pam's house, they found Louis Gumpenberger dead inside Pam's house. And she told them that she had to shoot Louis because he came at her like a madman. At first it looked like a simple self-defense case, but then a week after it went down, Pam Hupp got hit with the murder charge. When the cops came to pick her up, Pam asked to use the bathroom before they put her in cuffs. The cops let her go to the bathroom, and that's when Pam tried to slice her own neck and wrist open with a ballpoint pen. It turned out Pam wasn't some innocent woman who got attacked. She was actually a brutal murderer who had already killed her mom and best friend. Pam stabbed her best friend 55 times and then blames it on her friend's husband. And she also pushed her own mom off of a balcony so she can get insurance money. Pam Hupp's case was wild, but this next dude might have killed over 20 women. Maury Travis came up in St. Louis and was living in Ferguson when the cops arrested him for killing Alicia Greenwade and Betty James. When the cops raided his crib, they also found a tape that showed Maury Travis torturing and murdering one of the women. But that was only the beginning of the story. It turned out that Maury Travis was a serial killer who had been picking up prostitutes and murdering them. The body started turning up in 2001, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch wrote a story about one of the victims. After the story came out, Maury Travis sent them a letter and gave a map to where the cops could find